Hello viewers, you're watching the WowLifeStyle Show. Today we are talking about deadly but preventable rabies. And we have one of my favorite resource persons, Dr. Moses Verimajimati. He's a public health physician specialist, he's a medical doctor, and he's a reverend minister. He's also a district director of health service, and he's going to help us to understand why we should be talking about rabies. Yes. Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Helena.
So I've seen you do a lot of campaign on social media lately about rabies. And I was wondering, rabies, is that really of public health concern? Should we be interested? What is going on?
Yes, we need to talk about rabies. Because, as you said in your introduction, rabies is 100% preventable. And there is no point. There's no point. Since 2012, there are about every year, you get between, say, 60 and 120 people dying in Ghana from rabies, a disease that's entirely preventable. And you send children or adults with rabies to the hospital, and they are alive, but the doctors will tell you it is rabies. It doesn't matter what we do. Here or in the US, the patient will definitely die. Immediately there are signs and symptoms of the disease. You just can't cure it.
Okay.
And since it is preventable, that's the more reason why we need to talk about it. And everybody's hands are needed to prevent rabies in Ghana. Okay. That's why I'm talking about it.
So some of us might have heard about it, rabies. Yeah. It will surprise you that somebody hasn't even heard about it before, or doesn't know what it is. Okay. What is rabies?
Okay, rabies is a viral disease. That's a disease caused by virus. Okay. 99% cases of rabies are due to encounters with dogs. Okay. So when
95%?
99. Okay. So when a dog gets rabies and then bites you or scratches you or licks an open area in the skin, like if you have a sore, or your eyes, we call those places mucous membranes. If the dog gets in touch with you in these ways, when it has the rabies, and then appropriate treatment is not given to you before you develop signs, when you develop the signs, you will definitely die. So rabies, like I said, is a disease caused by viruses, and 99% of the cases are due to a scratch from a dog or a bite from a dog. Okay.
So it means the mode of transmission, usually in our settings or anywhere, is through a scratch from the dog.
A scratch or a bite from a dog. Let me maybe explain further. What happens is that when the dog also gets the rabies, which affects the brain, the viruses are excreted or shared in the saliva, of the dog. Okay. So when the dog bites you, since there's saliva in the mouth, it gets into the wound. Okay. And then they drool. They produce a lot of saliva when they get the rabies. Okay. So there is saliva on the paws as well. Okay. And that's why if it scratches you, that's why I can also give you the rabies. Okay. What happens is that when you are bitten or scratched and they inject the virus into the wound, the viruses will multiply there for some time. They attach themselves to nerve cells and then start moving towards the spinal cord. When they get into the spinal cord, they move towards the brain. Immediately they touch the brain and there are signs and symptoms. That's the end of you.
This is scary.
Yes. Yes, you are right on that.
So is there a first aid? What should one do immediately they are bitten by a dog?
Yes, basically, there are a few things we need to do on a whole in order to prevent rabies. The first thing is that, like we are doing today, the society must know about rabies and how it is transmitted so that when there is an exposure, they know what to do. So, prevent dog bites. But then when there is a dog bite, these are what you do. Don't kill the dog. Send the person who is bitten to hospital. And then if there is a veterinary officer in the community, the veterinary officer must also know. Now, before you send the person to the hospital, wash the area thoroughly with water and soap for 15 minutes. before you send the person to the hospital. Now, when you send the person to the hospital and then you meet a doctor, a health worker who understands...
Doctor, please hold on. Did you say for 15 minutes?
For 15 minutes, yes.
Washing
1-5.
Wow.
Wash the area with soap and water for 15 minutes.
Okay.
That's the most important thing. If you have, say, iodine, you may apply after the washing. But if you don't have it, no big deal.
Iodine?
Yes, iodine.
Can we use salt?
Salt? No, that's not part of what we do.
I'm wondering how many people have iodine in their homes.
Oh, yes, yes. What we
aid.
mean is that somebody may have access. If the person is a health worker, or when they get to the clinic may decide to put on it. But that is not enough. That is not enough. Don't kill the dog. The veterinary officers will be in charge. The dog will be quarantined for the next about 2 weeks to see what happens to it, right?
Okay.
Whilst that is being done, depending on the situation of the bite, the doctor or health worker may prescribe what we call post-exposure prophylaxis. You'll be giving the vaccine based on the circumstances of the bite. If we are thinking that it's likely the dog may be rabid or has rabies, then we start the vaccines straight away. For instance, if you are living in a house with a dog that knows all of you, and without provocation, the dog starts biting people, it means something could be wrong. That's a circumstance under which we will start the post-exposure prophylaxis whilst the dog is quarantined. If after 14 days we think that the dog is okay, then we will stop the vaccination, which we have already started. The other circumstances for which we also vaccinate is that if you are bitten by a stray dog, the owner of which you don't know, it means that you are attacked by the dog in town. So this is the case where the veterinary officer cannot get the dog to quarantine for us to know what becomes of it. Under that circumstances, we must vaccinate you fully because we don't know the status of the dog. Then
there's no way of testing whether you have been infected.
No, you can't.
No,
usually it is when you get it before we can prove that you have it, but not when you have been bitten.
So when you say when you get it and there is no way to test that you have got it, does it mean when you start expressing or showing
the signs and symptoms of the disease?
Okay.
The other circumstance under which we may also vaccinate you is that you see the viruses wherever the exposure takes place. Okay, assuming you are bitten on the leg, it takes a longer time to get to the brain. But on the hand, on the face, on the shoulders, the distances between that place and then the brain are shorter. So when you are bitten in these areas, then we are likely to start the vaccination until we are sure the dog is all right before we stop. There are some circumstances, and for instance, if you say that you were moving around in the house and then you accidentally stepped on the dog and it's bit you. This is biting in self-defense, right? So you realize that after biting, the dog is still normal and is playing with everybody. It's not likely that the dog is rabid. So this one, we will observe the dog, but we will not give you the vaccine. We will wait until the end of the quarantine. If the dog is okay, fine. But if anywhere along the line, the dog starts showing signs of disease, we'll quickly start the vaccination.
Okay, doctor, you said if the dog is okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? That's if the dog is not dead.
If the dog is
In
not
2 weeks.
dead and doesn't look sick.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So where do we quarantine the dog?
Yes. Usually, if you have a cage at home, you may be advised by the vet to just lock up the dog, feed it from a distance. Just drop the food into its plate. Don't get close for the 14 days or 2 weeks or 10 days.
Do we really make use of our veterinary officers?
The problem with our veterinary officers is that, unlike the human health officers, there is a gross shortage of vet officers. They are not all over the place like the human health workers. So you have to look for them. You have to look for them. But if you know the right thing to do and you meet a health worker who knows the right thing to do, they can just liaise with the district or municipal health administration and they know how to find the veterinary officer for the district and then they will take action.
Okay.
Right. So we're talking about the fact that based on the circumstances, you may be vaccinated immediately or we may hold on. The vaccine comes in two types.
Okay.
One is the antigen.
Okay.
The other one is the immunoglobulin. The immunoglobulin is the antibody that fights the virus directly.
Okay.
But the antigen, when we give to you, it causes your body to produce antibodies. So it takes a time for that to be done. But the immunoglobulin is already produced antibodies, and they attack the viruses directly.
Okay.
If the bite is close to the brain, and there are times when the dog bites the person, based on the way the dog is behaving, we may think that the dog has rabies. So we quickly, humanely kill the dog and send the head to the veterinary officers. They will do examination on it, and if they confirm the rabies, then we may give you both the immunoglobulin and then the antigen, because the immunoglobulin will start fighting the viruses immediately. Okay. But then the antigen, it will take a few days before they cause your body to produce the antibodies that fight the germs. Okay. Right? And under normal circumstances, what happens is that when you are bitten by a dog, it takes between 8 weeks and then 1 year for the person to get the disease. But commonly, around 8 to 12 weeks is when the people develop the signs and symptoms of the disease. And I always say, immediately there are signs and symptoms of the disease, you will not survive. You will definitely die. You get what I'm saying?
8 weeks to 1 year.
To 1 year, yeah.
So from that, if someone gets bitten today,
yes,
and say there is rabies, the dog has rabies. This viral infection.
Yeah.
The person has between 8 weeks
to 1 year
to if they are not treated.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long period.
Yes, a long period. A long period. But usually, most of the cases that come develop between 8 and 12 weeks. Then the person will come to the hospital. And 40% of the people who get the rabies are children less than 15 years. 40% globally.
So can they since it's a viral infection, if a person is bitten by a dog and they don't take it serious, and we're looking at 1 year, is it possible that a person can transmit if they are sharing cups or plates or spoons?
What research has shown is that we have only a few, just about 2 cases, that it was from one human to another. And that one, in those 2 cases, one, the person beat a little child, as in biting, right? And then the other one, was a history that the mother kissed the child several times. And I said mucous membranes are major sources of exposure. So if the organism is in the saliva, and then the mother kisses the child, then it's like direct inoculation into the mouth of the child. Right. But at normal circumstances, we don't get rabies from one person to another if such things that happen in those few cases do not happen. In the US, where we get human-to-human rabies transmission, it is because of organ donation. So people had rabies, and they were bitten by a bat in the rabies. Most of the people who get in the US, most of the people who get rabies is from encounters with bats, unlike Ghana and other developing countries where it is from dogs. So the person got the encounter and then died. They harvested the organs and gave it to other people. Then the people started developing rabies. And because they have a very good record-keeping system, they were able to trace all the 4 people across United States who had organs from the person. Okay. So immediately the first person died and they saw it. Then quickly they started vaccinating the others. Yes.
That's good to know.
Yes.
That's when the system works.
When the system is very effective, yeah.
Yeah, we pray for same for our country,
Maybe
Ghana.
one day we'll get there.
Viewers, we are going for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk more.
Looking for commercial cleaners in Ghana? Then your only solution is Delete Ghana Limited. At Delete Ghana Limited, we supply high quality, professional, comprehensive and cost-effective commercial cleaning services across Ghana. We have the experience, specialized skills and equipment to clean your offices, commercial facilities, retail outlets and shopping centers, estates, schools, sports venues, etc. Other services include waste management, facility management and road and building construction. Call us now on 020-7756-881. You can also follow us on Instagram at Delete Ghana Limited and Facebook Delete Ghana Limited. For more information, email us on info@deleteghana.com or log on to www.deleteghana.com.
Welcome back. Doctor, you know, as we are talking about this, I'm wondering, is rabies really common in Ghana? What is the situation like here?
Yeah, and for between 2012 and 2015, I don't have the 2016 and 17 data.
Okay.
Every year we lost between 68 and 120 people to rabies.
Okay.
And I also said that in public health, for diseases that we target, they should be diseases that we have antidotes to.
Okay.
Somebody may talk about malaria, yes, but we spend more on malaria. We are able to get some saved. We are able to lose a few. For rabies, if we do the right thing, we will lose nothing.
Okay.
And what people at times don't get right is that when you talk about maybe 120 people dying from the disease, what you don't know is that each of those people is coming from a family. And if his name is Kofi Mensah, when he dies, there is nobody who replaces him or her, regardless of how many people are dying or not dying from malaria. So assuming that I have only one child, and then that child didn't die from malaria, but died from rabies, does it mean I'll have my child back? No. So if rabies is preventable, let's prevent it. And it is not expensive to prevent rabies. When you vaccinate a dog for a year, it costs a maximum of between 10 and 20 Ghana cedis.
10, 20 Ghana.
10 and 20.
Vaccinate. So we need to advocate for people to vaccinate their
Sure.
dogs. We are not making use of our veterinary services, are we?
Not optimally. Not optimally. We are not doing that optimally. But everybody who has a dog must ensure that once a year, the dog is vaccinated against rabies.
Okay.
And when we do that, in fact, the research is that if we get 70% of the dogs in the community vaccinated, we are going to eliminate rabies. And that is the target of the WHO. But that by 2030, nobody should die anywhere in the world from rabies due to a dog bite.
2030?
Yes, 2030.
How many years to go?
2030 is just about 12 years from now,
Okay.
or less than that.
I think it's achievable.
It's
if we work
achievable if we do
towards
the
it.
right things. If it's achievable if we do the right things.
Is there World Rabies Day?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Every 28th September of every year is World Rabies Day. And
28 September?
Yes, 28
Do you have
September.
any programs lined up for 28 September?
Yes. Last year we did something, except that unlike other diseases, we don't have a program in Ghana for rabies prevention currently. But I am interested in rabies. So every year I find something to do. In fact, on a daily basis, I do something about rabies.
We are happy to partner with you on that.
You are always welcome. and I am so confident that we will succeed in doing this.
Okay.
Because it's not difficult to get everybody to understand that you need to vaccinate the dogs.
dog.
It's not difficult to get everybody to understand that when you are bitten by rabies, please don't use cola nuts.
People
Don't-
use cola nuts?
Yes.
For what?
To treat the area. Then
So
they say
they-
that the poison will come out. It's not true.
It's not true.
Don't use any herbs.
Talking about what is not true, I think growing up, we had this perception
Yeah.
that when you are bitten by a dog
Yeah.
and you have the infection,
Yeah.
you also back, the human backs, or the victim backs
What
like a
happens
dog.
is that when you get a disease, the part of the brain that it affects is the part that controls the voice box, that controls speech.
Okay.
So there are muscle spasms. So then you begin to make abnormal
Funny
noises.
noise.
Yes,
Okay.
abnormal noises. That's
Okay.
what happens.
All right,
Yeah.
doctor.
She picked the time. He picked the place. Now their eyes meet. They feel an undeniable attraction, but self-doubt stands between them. Can they break the barrier? With the freshness of antibacterial mouthwash formula with zinc in our best ever close-up toothpaste. Break the barrier. Move closer with confidence. Close-up deep action for 12 hours of long-lasting fresh breath.
I think that you have really enlightened us on the topic of rabies. But before we go off, what are your final words for our viewers at home?
Yes, my final words are just a few. The first thing is that rabies is deadly, but like you said, it is 100% preventable. The second thing is that in order to prevent rabies, everybody must ensure that once a year, you vaccinate your dog. Everybody. The second thing is that if for any reason a dog bites any person, please wash the place thoroughly with water and soap for 15 minutes. When you are done, send the person to the hospital. Now, if you think that you want to be sure of what is happening, you can go to Human Rabies Prevention Ghana on Facebook. You can give me a personal message. I get those messages from Asia, anywhere in the world, 24 hours a day. Anytime anybody gives me that message, I give them exactly what they should do about the situation, and then they do about it. Okay. Yeah, so when it comes to worse, you think that you met somebody and the person doesn't know much, because there have been a few occasions when, for instance, the people go to the clinics with somebody who has been bitten by a puppy. Usually what happens is that rabies vaccination is not given to the dogs until they are 3 months. So if the dog is bitten by another dog before 3 months and that dog has rabies, it means this dog will have rabies. So there have been instances where puppies bite children, and then when they are sent to people who are not experienced in rabies care, they say, oh, this is just a puppy. What they don't know that the puppies are more dangerous because they must be 3 months before they can be given the rabies vaccine. So there have been instances like that when the next time they take the child to the hospital, the child had already developed signs and symptoms, and the person dies. Anytime you are not sure, just go to Human Rabies Prevention on Facebook, Ghana, and then give me a message.
Okay, we'll do that. Over to you, our viewers.
I'll respond.
Okay. Doctor will respond. I know him very well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your
welcome.
time. We are happy to partner with you anytime, whether on social media, any way that you require our services. Viewers, this has been the WowLifeStyle Show. I will also advocate for vaccinating our dogs yearly, as Doctor has enlightened us on, and it's not so expensive. If you can afford to buy a dog, 10 cedis, 20 cedis a year shouldn't be a problem. And also, let's try to have our dogs indoors. We shouldn't let them out such that we put other people at risk. And also, let's make use of our veterinary services. I don't think that is very common here. I think in the outside world, because they have dogs as pets, like they sleep with them and all that, they take these things seriously. But we also have them in our houses.
Sleep as in sharing bed with them.
Yes. Thank you for the clarification. Okay, so they live with us, and they can, once they drool, Doctor mentioned drooling and all that, they can come into contact, the saliva can come into contact with our skin, and that will put us at risk. So let's do things the right way. This show is proudly brought to you by Optimum Nutrition Care Consult and Comfort Legacy Foundation. My makeup was done by M. Gorgeous Beauty Clinic. See you next time.
protected.